Jerusalem, city of stone and sunlight, has been sacred to Jews, Christians, and Muslims for centuries. For Jews, it's the city of King David and the lost temple. For Christians, it's where Jesus lived, died, and rose again. For Muslims, it's the site of Muhammad's ascent to heaven. This shared holiness has made Jerusalem a symbol of faith and a flashpoint for conflict. Rulers and empires have fought for its control, believing to rule Jerusalem was to hold spiritual power. The city's history is a tapestry of prayer, pilgrimage, war, and conquest. Before the Crusades, Muslim rulers controlled Jerusalem, but Christian pilgrims were often allowed to visit. This fragile peace depended on the goodwill of local rulers. In the 11th century, the Seljuk Turks seized Jerusalem, making pilgrimages dangerous, and stories of violence spread across Europe. Reports of attacks on pilgrims and destroyed churches fueled outrage in the Christian world. The Byzantine emperor, threatened by the Seljuks, appealed to the Pope in Rome for help. This plea set off a chain of events that would ignite the Crusades, an era of holy war that would reshape the world. Jerusalem's sacred stones would soon witness a new wave of conflict, as faith and power collided on its ancient streets. The city's fate would become the rallying cry for thousands across Europe. The Crusades were about to begin, and Jerusalem would never be the same. The struggle for this city would echo for centuries, shaping the destinies of empires and faiths alike. The world was on the brink of a holy war. The call to arms would soon ring out across Europe. The story of the Crusades starts here, in a city claimed by three faiths and coveted by all. The battle for Jerusalem was about to change history. In 1095, Pope Urban II addressed a crowd in Clermont, France, with a message that would shake Europe. He spoke of Christian suffering in the East and the dangers facing pilgrims in Jerusalem. The Pope's words were a rallying cry: free the Holy Land from Muslim rule and protect fellow Christians. But Urban's motives were also political. He sought to unite Europe's warring knights and increase the Church's power. He framed the crusade as a holy pilgrimage, not a war of conquest. Knights were promised a new kind of warfare, fighting for God, not for land or gold. The Pope offered a powerful incentive: remission of all sins for those who took up the cross. This plenary indulgence meant salvation for any who joined, a promise that electrified medieval society. The idea of holy war was new, thrilling, and irresistible. Urban's call spread like wildfire, uniting nobles, knights, and commoners in a shared cause. The crusade was not just a military campaign, it was a spiritual mission, a chance to save souls and secure eternal glory. The Pope's words would launch a movement that would transform Europe and the Middle East. The age of the Crusades had begun. The promise of forgiveness and the lure of adventure would send thousands marching east. The world would never be the same. The Pope's call unleashed a tidal wave of enthusiasm across Europe. Not just knights, but peasants, craftsmen, and even children joined the march to the Holy Land. The first wave, the People's Crusade, was chaotic and ill-prepared, led by preachers like Peter the Hermit. Motivations varied: spiritual reward, glory, land, or escape from hardship. The journey was brutal. Thousands died from hunger, disease, and violence long before reaching Jerusalem. The Crusaders faced a grueling trek of nearly 3,000 miles, crossing mountains, rivers, and deserts. There was little central planning. Each lord led his own followers, causing confusion and conflict. Relations with the Byzantine Empire were tense. The emperor expected a small force, not a massive, unruly host. Mistrust between Western and Eastern Christians would haunt the Crusades for generations. Despite the hardships, the Crusaders pressed on, driven by faith and hope. Their march would soon bring them to the gates of Jerusalem. The fate of the Holy City, and the world, hung in the balance. The Crusaders were about to make history. After a harrowing journey, the Crusader armies reached enemy territory. Led by nobles like Godfrey of Bouillon, they captured Nicaea and, after a brutal siege, Antioch. Against all odds, they survived starvation and defeat, seeing victory as a sign of God's favor. In 1099, the Crusaders reached Jerusalem. The siege was fierce, and when the city fell, a massacre followed, one that shocked even their contemporaries. With Jerusalem in their hands, the Crusaders established their own states: the Kingdom of Jerusalem, Antioch, Edessa, and Tripoli. These Crusader states were European kingdoms transplanted to the Middle East, surrounded by hostile forces. For Europe, Jerusalem's capture was a triumph. For the Muslim world, it was a catastrophe. The First Crusade deepened the divide between Christian West and Muslim East, setting the stage for centuries of conflict. The Crusader states would struggle to survive, always under threat. The legacy of the First Crusade was both glory and tragedy, a new world born from faith and blood. The struggle for the Holy Land was far from over. The Crusades had only just begun. The First Crusade transformed the Catholic Church and the papacy. The Pope became not just a spiritual leader, but a political force commanding armies and shaping nations. The Church's authority grew. Popes claimed power over kings, built vast bureaucracies and collected wealth across Europe. Crusades became a tool for the papacy, used to pressure rulers and unite Christendom. The movement brought the Church wealth and land, as nobles donated property in exchange for prayers or left estates in the Church's care. Crusading became part of everyday life, reinforcing a shared Christian identity across Europe. Knights from different lands now saw themselves as soldiers of Christ, united against a common enemy. The Church's influence reached every corner of society, shaping politics, culture, and faith. The idea of Christendom, one Christian people under the Pope, took root. The Crusades made the Church the heart of medieval Europe. But with power came new challenges and conflicts. The Church's rise would shape the destiny of Europe for centuries. The Crusades opened a bridge between Europe and the Middle East. Thousands of Europeans encountered new cultures, foods, and ideas in the Crusader states and beyond. Trade flourished. Italian cities like Venice and Genoa grew rich from shipping Crusaders and goods. Spices, silk, and glassware flowed into Europe, fueling demand and wealth. More important than goods was the exchange of knowledge. Europeans rediscovered ancient Greek philosophy and learned from Muslim advances in science, medicine, and mathematics. Arabic numerals, the concept of zero, and new medical techniques transformed European learning. This transfer of knowledge sparked an intellectual awakening, laying the groundwork for the Renaissance. Universities flourished and curiosity about the wider world grew. The Crusades, born of conflict, became a channel for cultural exchange. Their legacy was not just war, but the seeds of Europe's future. Defending the Crusader states required a new kind of soldier, the warrior monk. Orders like the Knights Templar and Knights Hospitaller combined monastic vows with military discipline. The Templars, founded to protect pilgrims, grew into a wealthy international organization, pioneering early banking systems. The Hospitallers began as caregivers but became formidable fighters, building mighty castles like Crac des Chevaliers. These orders became the backbone of Crusader defense, professionalizing holy war. The idea of monks fighting was revolutionary, reshaping both church and society. Warrior monks were seen as the ultimate soldiers of Christ, pious, disciplined, and deadly. Their power and wealth, however, would eventually make them targets of suspicion and envy. The Templars' dramatic downfall would become legend. The age of the warrior monk was both a triumph and a warning. The crusading spirit soon turned inward. Popes and kings used the idea of holy war to target enemies within Europe, heretics, pagans, and political rivals. The Albigensian Crusade against the Cathars in France was especially brutal, more about power than faith. Crusades were launched against pagans in the Baltic and even against Christian opponents of the Pope. This expansion bred cynicism. Was the crusade about faith or just politics? Military failures in the East, like the disastrous Second and Fourth Crusades, deepened doubt. The sack of Constantinople by Crusaders shocked the Christian world. The pure faith of the First Crusade gave way to disillusionment and skepticism. The crusading ideal was tarnished by ambition and failure. The age of holy war was losing its shine. By 1291, the last Crusader stronghold had fallen. The dream of a Christian Jerusalem was over. Militarily, the Crusades failed, but their impact was profound. They left a legacy of bitterness and mistrust between Christian and Muslim worlds. In Europe, the Crusades shaped politics, trade, and culture, fueling the rise of the papacy and the birth of the Renaissance. The memory of the Crusades still echoes in modern conflicts and perceptions. The Crusades were a story of faith and violence, of hope and tragedy. They built bridges and walls, sparking both hatred and curiosity. The scars and achievements of this era shaped the world we know today. To understand the Crusades is to understand the tangled roots of our modern world. Their story is a warning and a lesson for all time.